As educators, we have each developed our own unique way of thinking about optimal conditions for teaching and learning. As we navigate a continually shifting environment, it is helpful to have models that will help us to anchor our thinking in a way that is both responsive to our students' needs and sustainable for us as we plan our lessons. This module will provide us with some practices that will help us to think both in terms of what is best for students and what is sustainable, resilient practice. Due to safety concerns that arose in the spring of 2020, we now have some idea of what it feels like to engage and instruct in a remote learning environment. We have developed thinking about what went well, what was less than optimal, and the inequities that we want to address as we deliver instruction in new ways. With the implementation of social distancing protocols and safety requirements in our schools, we are now looking at shifting among three possible learning environments for D303 students in early childhood through age 22. This means we are shifting the way we are thinking about the best way for students to learn. We know that practices we believe to work well for students, like movement, group interaction, and sharing of materials and manipulatives, will be a challenge, if not completely impossible. To adjust to these realities, we will need to reimagine the ways that we can ensure that student learning takes place, that our workload is sustainable, and that access to learning is equitable for students with diverse experiences and backgrounds. As you preview the outcomes for this presentation, consider the essential question: in what ways can I implement models of instruction that will engage students, manage my workload, and ensure equity in a shifting environment? First, let's consider the language we are using to describe some of the changes in our learning environment. In person, remote, and hybrid environments all incorporate some level of at school learning and at home learning. As we design our instruction, it is good to understand what we mean when we use this language. When we say at school learning, we are identifying an environment in which students are physically present in a D303 building or learning space. The educator is physically present with students. Social distancing protocols are in place. Instruction may be delivered online or offline. Students will be engaging in many different learning tasks. Students can learn asynchronously or synchronously. When we refer to at home learning, we are saying an environment in which students are not physically present in the D303 building or learning space. The educator is not physically present with students. Instruction is primarily delivered online. Like at school learning, students will be engaging in many different learning tasks, and students can learn asynchronously or synchronously. As you look at these lists, where do you see similarities? Where do you see the ways that these environments are different? As you consider your design, how can you make choices that will allow for seamless transitions between at school learning and at home learning based on this understanding? As you navigate this course, we encourage you to adopt a mindset that will sustain both you and your students' work as learning environments change due to circumstances out of our control. Resilient pedagogy is based on the idea that there are elements of design that are both good for teachers and good for students. Both students and teachers need a safe learning and working space, sustainable routines and structures, and confidence that while their circumstances are not preferred, they can be successful in the current reality. For this reason, it is recommended that rather than create multiple plans for different possibilities, we design one plan that can work in any environment. At this time, you may be experiencing any number of emotions that are associated with your beliefs about our current reality. Remember that your feelings are valid no matter what they are. We can only move forward when we identify the beliefs that we hold true about an event. If you believe an event to be unsafe or dangerous, you will invariably feel fear. If you believe an event to be safe or familiar, you may feel confident or optimistic. Let's take a moment to identify our beliefs about changing learning environments. What are some thoughts you are having currently? Jot down 3 words that capture your thinking and consider how those beliefs have an impact on your emotional reaction. Pause the video here if you need more time. Now, in what ways do you think that these beliefs impact your feelings? You may be feeling anxious, afraid, sad, excited, optimistic, or anything in between. Identify 3 emotions you are experiencing. Pause the video here if you need more time. The goal for this course is to provide you with some familiarity, structures, and a sense of safety so that you can think about changing learning environments in a way that is sustainable. You will find that each of the models you will encounter can be used in combination and are interchangeable based on your learning outcomes. You will also find that planning templates and examples are present to help you think through the models. Finally, use the checklist to help you implement models for your instructional design. Each of these models can be personalized for all content areas and D303 students in ages early childhood through 22. Station rotation has historically been referred to as learning activity centers, where one or more of the centers is student led online learning. Students rotate through the centers or stations on a fixed schedule set by the teacher. This diagram shows what a station rotation can look like in a traditional at school setting with few social distancing protocols in place. Station rotations generally include a small group meeting or discussion station so that the educator has more directed time with individual students or small groups of students. Because students rotate through these stations in groups, it's possible to design differentiated content, process, and product according to learner profiles. To think about how you might design a station rotation that can work in any environment, whether at school or in person, let's look at this sample ELA lesson. To think about how you might design a station rotation that can work in any environment, whether at school or at home, let's look at this sample ELA lesson designed for 6th graders. Using the Schoology LMS, the educator has created completion rules that help students track their progress through each station and may even require that the stations be completed in sequential order. In the first station, students watch an intro video in which the educator greets the students, identifies their learning goals, and reminds them how to navigate the playlist. The second station is a text assignment that students will read and annotate using an online extension called Kami. In the third station, students meet with the educator to share out their connections, ask questions, and receive feedback. This station can be modified for an at school environment where protocols allow students to meet in a safe space. In the fourth station, students watch an Edpuzzle video with interactive questions. Station 5 is a discussion thread in which students apply the skill learned in the Edpuzzle and interact with peers. In Station 6, students engage in independent reading. Finally, in Station 7, students log in their reading and self reflect on the process. In a flipped classroom model, students consume online lessons or lectures independently, whether at home or at school. Typically, there is a video. The educator may have pre recorded a lesson or lecture, or used another video learning resource like Khan Academy, YouTube, or Edpuzzle. When students engage in independent practice, the teacher is available synchronously or in person at school for questions, feedback, and clarification. This is a flip of the traditional practice. The flipped model is often used in combination with other models, as you saw in the previous example. The key question to ask when thinking through this model is, what is the best use of a teacher's face to face time? Is it to stand in front of the students talking to them, or facilitate them through high impact activities like inquiry, collaboration, discussion, and project based learning? In a high school algebra class, lecture would no longer take place in the at school setting, but would rather be presented in short 10-minute videos that are interactive to self assess and check for understanding. This way, students can have time to practice and apply their learning both with peers and with the support of their teacher to answer questions and redirect. In a remote environment, the face to face time with the teacher would be via virtual meeting or discussion thread. Rather than receive a lecture and notes, students are working in groups, questioning, or independently practicing their learning with the teacher available for support and clarification. In the workshop model, students learn to self regulate their own learning while also actively engaging in their work and development of skills and understanding. Typically, there are three components spaced out with established routines and structures for engagement. The mini lesson may be synchronous or asynchronous, whole class, flipped, or personalized for individuals and groups. Work time, with clearly communicated structures and routines, allows students to collaborate, create, experiment, engage in inquiry or problem solving, and apply their learning. The work time may also include small group or individual conferencing, self assessment or checking for understanding, and small group or individual mini lessons. The debrief is an opportunity for students to engage metacognitively with the process and share and reflect. Here is an example of a synchronous fifth grade math lesson that uses the workshop model. Students can engage in this learning at home as well as at school with the added element of conferencing during work time. The educator has created completion rules to ensure that students can track their progress. Directions are provided in both text and audio. For the mini lesson, students view a short Edpuzzle video that has interactive questions to check for understanding. Next, they are provided time to work on the skill. During this time, students are scheduled by group to meet with the educator in the virtual meeting space. During this time, the educator can check for understanding, provide further instruction, and confer with students who need additional support. In the debrief, students share their process with their teacher and peers using the audio or video feature. In the Flex model, students are generally engaging in online delivery of instruction with a teacher available to support or pull students into breakout groups as needed. Educators have an opportunity to both personalize and differentiate for their students who have the flexibility to control pace, place, time, and path as they engage in this learning. In an at school setting, the educator is present to respond to students who need support, facilitation, and clarity. In an at home setting, the teacher can be available using online tools such as virtual meeting spaces and breakout rooms for synchronous support, or design a system for checking in with students using asynchronous communication tools like messaging, discussion board, and email. The Flex model creates opportunities to truly personalize, especially when PLCs collaborate to design the learning. A third grade PLC may collaborate to provide instruction for a wider variety of learner profiles and content, such that students can engage in the learning they need at their own pace and time, even when they cannot be present in an at school environment. The PLC can divide the design of instruction by subject or unit, create flexible groupings, and provide responsive feedback to the students using their LMS and technology tools. This is different from designing e-learning lessons for a whole group of students to access at the same time and at the same place at home or at school. Remember, with the Flex model, to leverage your PLC to make it work most successfully for you and your students. After viewing this presentation, select the model you wish to explore further by accessing one of the folders. Within each folder, you will find a more detailed description of each model, including strengths and challenges to help you decide if it will be best for you as well as your students. Additionally, you will find templates you can customize for your planning, a playlist of resources including educators who have used this model in different settings, and a checklist to help you implement the model.